To extend on what Stephen has already talked about this morning with communicating and our moods and all that, and then Judy on her communication, I'm going to kind of continue that realm today. So we're going to really talk about people and how we interact with people and how we can communicate a little bit better with people. So we're talking about communication. You know, how to communicate better with people. We're going to talk about, 20% of your time, helping the good people be better versus spending our time making the great terrific. So when we can take those people that can really improve, you can see a big difference in your environment when we're helping those people that have much more room to grow. So we can do that. And we're going to talk about and then also through projects and follow-up when we're working with other people, making sure that when we are delegating or when we have subordinates working for us or when we're working just in a team by itself, it's really important to really keep track of progress, knowing what the expectations are, and making sure that we just don't put something out there and don't follow up. So delegate. So I know that Rhonda has people to delegate to, Bill has people to delegate to, Joy doesn't have that many, and you have people to delegate to. So we really do, even when we think we don't have people to delegate, even those of us who might be sole proprietors have people to delegate because we still hire outsources. We outsource different things. We might have a virtual assistant. We might outsource our website. We might outsource other things. So still, even though when we think about delegating, we tend to think about having direct subordinates. And that's not really what it's all about. So we really want to be more effective with what we're delegating to, no matter who it might be. So the first part is really to having clarity around where do we want to go? What is really our outcome? So how many have done a jigsaw puzzle before? Okay. You like them?
Pro.
You're the pro. Okay. So if I give you a jigsaw puzzle and I do not give you the top of the box.
Oh, it's harder.
Okay. We got it harder. Anybody else, any thought around that when I said that? It's impossible? Okay. And there are some people that might think that is a great challenge. But for the majority of us, we're going to have those reactions like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. Why would I do that? So when we give or ask people to do something without them really knowing what is that end goal, what is that picture, what does that look like, but that's sometimes what we do when we delegate to other people because we know what it looks like. We know what we want. We know where we want to go with it. But if we haven't really clarified and given everyone the picture so that they can see and they understand it, what happens when we do that, they take ownership. They take ownership if they know where they're going to go. But it's really hard when we just say, okay, I want this to happen, and we don't really clarify what that really looks like. So it's really about basically sometimes giving up control. And for a lot of us, that's very hard to do. Sometimes we think, okay, we can do it easier, faster myself than taking the time to train somebody. And that is a huge, when you're thinking about, here we're talking about productivity, the productivity that's lost, even though you think that you really are gaining productivity by just doing it yourself and not taking the time to train somebody to do that or to take the steps. But when you do take the time to really spell it out, give them the direction, help them do it, you're creating a couple different things. Number one, you're creating someone else that can do that. You're not so dependent on doing that. Then in that procedure, you can also have some procedures when you're training somebody to have them document how to do it and then have them take that and put that into some writing so that when you have to train someone else to do that, you've already got to start on that. And so it's much easier. But when we train other people to do the things that we really don't want to be spending our time, I shouldn't say we don't want to be spending our time, that we shouldn't be spending our time on, that our time are much more effective either selling or producing or doing what that is versus some of the things, it's not good for me to probably be doing my marketing because it's something I don't know that much about. So I really need to hire that out. I need to give that to somebody else. Might be the website. I know Steven's working on a new website. We tend to, think, oh, well, I can do part of this myself a lot of times, but we really want to look at what is that outcome going to be? What is my time worth? We talked about that last week. What is our time really worth? And so it's a matter of thinking about that and where do we really put our time and effort. But if you take a little bit of time up front, training someone else to do something that's repetitive. So when something can be done over and over again, the same way, those are the things you want to start outsourcing to somebody else. If it's delegating, giving away. But when it can be done over and over the same way, those are the things that it's easier to transfer the skills for somebody else. So always make sure you're giving a timeline when you are. You're discussing a timeline. If it's with a person in outsource, if it's a person that you're delegating something to, and not that deadline always has to be steadfast. It can be flexible, but without putting a deadline with something, those are the things that tend to keep on getting put off a lot of times. Or you have expectations that someone that you haven't clearly defined to someone else. So it goes back to that communication. And I was very guilty of this when I had a staff, because I would hand something to somebody and say, okay, when you have time, will you do this? Because it wasn't really a high priority item. And then 3 or 4 days later, I'm wondering why it wasn't done. And they said, well, you said it wasn't, when I had time. Well, they're never going to find time if it's not really, given. Yes.
That's two of the most important things that a virtual assistant can ask. Who's it for and when do you need it?
Right. And to take that another step is there any flexibility in that time if we need to in the end?
And I
Yes.
also found out that you can internalize to yourself deadlines, that you want to get this done by and so forth. But writing them down really makes it concrete, and this is what I said, 10:30. Ooh, I better hurry.
Right. Right. Well, and when I'm putting things on my, when I've got to the point where, we talked about this when we talked about to-do lists and stuff, putting a timeline, even for ourselves, is definitely makes a big difference, because you say, okay, I'm going to work it on here. And then when you don't, you're making a choice. We're choosing. It's back to that choice, what I do. But so timelines are really critical. And then making sure that you're taking the time to make sure that person really understands you. So the best thing you can do is present whatever you want them to do, and then have them tell it back to you in their own words. Because what they hear and what you say can be two totally different things. Or like we learned this morning, the way we might say something, or it might be interpreted differently. Yes?
My father taught me an expression, a short pencil is better than a long memory.
I like that.
A short pencil is better than a long memory. In other words, the more you write down,
Right,
the more you remember.
right. The more you remember. So it really is. So having them verbally tell you what, and then letting them take their own way of going. Let them do it their way through their natural processes. They'll get it done faster and better than if you tell them to do it your way. So you want to give it to them, give them a deadline. And then at the end, you want to make sure that you're reviewing, not only that you review it after you've given them at the end of telling them or discussing with them, having them involved in the project as much as you can, and giving them responsibility. Then come back and, especially if it's a big project, review what went well, what could have been done differently, especially if you kind of made up all the decisions in the beginning. Have that discussion about what could we have done different, what went well, what went wrong, and not just, okay, we're on to another project. Take the time to really discuss those. And especially if you're training and it's going to become a manual of some kind or a procedure of some kind, you really want to review that. So effective delegation is really around clarity, knowing the goal, right? It's about involvement and ownership. So having them involved in the discussion. And it might be, which I didn't say this, but it might be as much as, saying, this is what I want to do. What is your opinion? How do you think the best way for us to get there? And get them, the more they're involved, the more ownership they're going to take. And then giving up a little bit more of the control. And then adding a deadline, timeline to that. And then reviewing the process at the end. Okay, so let's talk, which Judy already talked a little bit about meetings. So I want to talk more about meetings. So, does anybody have any comments about meetings? Do you do them a lot? What do you like about meetings? What do you don't like about meetings?
One of the things that I noticed at our last D3 meeting was that Bill had invited Dr. Dan to get up and do a short presentation. And boy, you know what? That was so helpful. Actually, it was probably more helpful to me because I don't really participate as much as the members and the contributors do. But just the idea that there's somebody there that is concerned with our health, business-wise and personal-wise, and that for them to have the opportunity to talk to us at each meeting would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be a long time. Dr. Dan's presentation was very short, but it was so helpful.
Right.
It was so helpful, I called and made an appointment for a
Right, so meetings can be very informative. They can be very helpful. They can help us grow our business, make our business go in other directions. Yes?
I was just gonna say, don't have a meeting unless you have a purpose for the meeting.
That's
Definitely, definitely.
And don't schedule them unless you have, a reason for it.
Right. Definitely, I always say there's two questions. The first is it necessary, right? And then ask, who needs to be involved and why? Versus we just invite everybody. We think, okay, this is a staff meeting, everybody needs to be there, right? Yes?
It's really irritating when people fail to have an agenda and fail to go over the action items at the end.
Right, okay. What else? Yes?
I think for us, because our gardening teams work in different locations after the initial loading of the trucks in the morning, having a weekly meeting with a set agenda to look forward to, seems like they remember that through the week and then bring things up to discuss or improve. So I think it builds more buy-in for the staff.
More buy-in for your staff? Yes.
I actually am a little bit of the opposite mindset of having more meetings but shorter meetings on a more regular basis, like with people that are all in one office that have maybe a department heads, to have them just do a check-in meeting with a purpose at the end of the day. Was there anything that you needed more support with? Was there anything that you'd like to be recognized for that you accomplished today? Because I think that actually is more helpful than we know. It's just kind of sort of a finishing sort of a meeting for the day.
Right.
So,
Yes.
The three questions I always want to know for meetings is, what's the purpose of the meeting? What are the outcomes that we want from the meeting? I need to know that in order for me to be engaged. Otherwise, I'm totally disengaged.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, why am I here? I want to know why I'm in that meeting, what's expected of me, what's my role. And those to me are the operative questions.
Right.
And then I can be engaged.
Right, because when we not only, so a lot of times we're requested to come to a meeting, so we're going because we're requested, but having that buy-in on ourselves, understanding, and that's one of the things is, sometimes you can question, do I really need to be in that meeting? Is that a meeting that I really need to participate in? Or am I just part of a number that was on the list, right? So again, when we're talking about starting a meeting, we want to really make sure that we are starting on time, right? That we have a set time limit when we start, when we stop, so that we can be a little bit better on accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So having an agenda, which Judy had talked about, is critical. And the one thing that I would say about agendas is we talked last week about having a tickler file. So if you have something like a tickler file, that's a great place to have one folder that's just for meetings. So when you have a thought, an idea, you can throw that in there. So when you're starting to build and create your agenda for the meeting, and it doesn't mean have to be a staff meeting, it could be a board meeting, anything. But when you get ready to do that agenda, all your thoughts are there and you don't have to think, oh, I thought of something last week and I don't remember what that was, right? So it's a great place to keep it, yes.
I just thought of something. Wouldn't it be great if you had a tickler file and it was on your computer on Outlook?
Yes, you definitely could create that. You could create one on your, electronically. Definitely.
Well, the other thing
definitely.
is you could do an agenda for your team that's on Google Docs or something where everybody can contribute to the agenda. And that way,
And then I don't think we talked about doing power drafts. So if you email an agenda out prior to the meeting, if you create that agenda that's standard, and then you save that and save it in your drafts, then you can just copy that and then start off with, and you have the basis for the same agenda, Yes.
I would like to see at all meetings, if possible, and that's a summary of what was covered by the meeting, but that's another job for somebody else and so forth and so on to do.
Right, right.
At least it puts down the points, important points of what is to be expected before the next meeting and so forth and so on.
Right, right. So, and we're going to talk about that, a way of being able to do that. But it's really important that we have some place to capture those thoughts. And if you're in charge of the agenda, to get it out ahead of time, like Bill always sends out the agenda, pretty much a week before the time, so that you have time to think. And so take the time to read it and not just say, okay, that's agenda and, put it to the side. But think about some of those things that are going to be discussed so that you can come prepared with thoughts, solutions, ideas, because then that versus getting there and then you're trying to think blindly, Yes.
You might cover this further in this presentation, but we always have the same agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Safety first, we have a pest we review, we have a disease we review, we have a plant we review, things like that. We have safety successes rather than near misses now. Is there
Great.
any drawback to always having the same agenda?
I personally don't think so, because I think it's easier to prepare for the next agenda because then you tend to not forget things. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows what to expect.
Right.
So
I think the only drawback would be is if it becomes uncreative in your delivery. So like,
Right.
let's say you have the same agenda, but maybe you bring a quote, or you bring a poem, or something to mix it up, make it entertaining, but still keep to the structure.
Right, yeah, the structure of it I think is great. That's great.
We have been
Idea.
rotating who leads the meeting.
Good.
With a fixed agenda, it does help.
Yeah.
everybody
It talks.
They feel more confident.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, great. So, and then having a parking lot for those things that are not on the agenda that come up, so that if you have time at the end of the meeting, then you can look at those items, or those are the items that then get put in for the next meeting. But a lot of times somebody will bring up something and we'll we did that yesterday, I think, Bill. we almost got off course with the meeting that we had, because he was trying to get us to answer one question and we were taking it to a totally another place. So that's when you have to say, okay, we're going to put that on the parking lot, and we'll wait, and then we'll see if we have time at the end. If not, that'll be on the next agenda. And then again, like as Judy had stated, make sure if you have something you want on the agenda that you give a heads up ahead of time. So while they're preparing that agenda, they can have that and fit that into the timeline. And then having somebody scribe the meetings or take notes, even if it's but the critical decisions that are made really need to be outlined, and having somebody dedicated to do that really is very effective. And then those need to then be given back to everybody. So a great way to do that, again, is to have that agenda template. And if they have a computer there and they could type and just bullet point, it doesn't have to be word for word for word, but bullet point the decisions that were made and or the things that were discussed that somebody else is going to do. You know, if somebody else is willing to do it, or the actions that, the follow-up actions that need to happen, and then they can be emailed out to everybody afterwards. So a couple of different things in saving some time. So as we discussed, is this meeting necessary, right? Do I need to be a part of it? Is everybody I'm including need to be a part of it? And then who really needs to attend? And then eliminate just if we eliminate just one 60-minute meeting a week, that'll save 6 days per year. So if you're in a lot of meetings, you know, just getting rid of one of those. And there are some people, I have some clients who are in meetings 3 to 4 times a day, you know, and those are the questions that we start asking. Is it really necessary for you to be there? What is the really purpose of the meeting? And trying to be able to make it a point and an intention of being there with, so that you're full on, you know, if you are going to attend. And consider scheduling 20-minute meetings or 50-minute meetings versus the standard 30-minute or 60-minute. Just shaving off that 10 minutes each time can build up and add up. So, you know, we just think, okay, we got to do it for an hour, but consider, well, can we do it for 45 minutes or 50 minutes or, you know, 25-minute meeting versus the standard 30 or 60. Send the agenda ahead of time, as I said. Avoid Monday and Friday meetings. And the main reason for that is number one, Mondays, people are trying to get themselves back into mode. They're trying to kind of get themselves caught up, you know, from, you know, all the email they've gotten over the weekend, all that kind of stuff. They're trying to get themselves organized and set for the week. And so if you just plop them up with a meeting on Monday morning, you know, then they haven't had a chance to really group for the week. And then Fridays, people are thinking about leaving. You know, they're thinking about, they want to get their desk cleaned off because they're leaving and the weekend's coming. And also, by doing it on a meeting on the critical days of maybe Tuesday and Wednesday, especially if you want some feedback or you want some follow-up, that gives them time to do it. But if you do it on a Friday and then they go into the weekend and then, you know, they're going to totally forget about it, you know, or then you're adding that on. Yes?
We feel like we need to have our meetings on Monday because of safety, because we work with so much power equipment. We don't want people to go out there after the weekend and forget to think safety first. So that's why we do Monday, but I don't know. I mean, one meeting seems less painful than having meetings on Monday and then breaking the rest of the non-safety stuff into Tuesday. So I
Right.
don't know. Any feedback about that?
Well, I would say because of, you know, your type of group, because they're really out in the field,
Right.
you know, so it's not like you're in the office and they're trying to, you know, you're really having a meeting to game plan where they're going, right? And what they're doing throughout the week.
Well, those are separate little
Okay.
mini meetings. Those are separate little groups in the field at the client's property.
Okay.
This is more big picture, safety primarily,
Right,
and
right.
products and knowledge gaining and sharing about what's been happening out there at the various locations.
Right.
I mean, I know that OSHA, you know, suggests, my professional landscape group suggests that to definitely do the safety meetings on Monday. To raise
And I would
awareness.
see that. I would see where that would probably be very important in your case.
But I just, you know, I know sometimes the meetings do run on because we do have this other knowledge stuff we want to include in that meeting, and I don't know if you're all thinking is it's better to have 2 separate meetings and just do the safety on Monday? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, that was a thought that it came to me is, you know, doing the safety first thing in the morning, kind of getting them geared up for the week, and then later.
How long does the safety take? 15, 10, 15?
Oh, yeah, 10, 15 minutes, not very long.
I think being a kinesthetic visual like your staff is, I think I'd kind of like to start the week with a 10-minute meeting. as long as it's just 10 minutes and it's about safety, it's about me.
Right,
And it kind of gets me oriented into the week.
right,
But I wouldn't be wanting to sit in much longer because
Okay.
I'm antsy, I'm ready to get to work.
right. So maybe do the other
Yeah.
content stuff on
That would be-
Tuesday.
Tuesday or Wednesday, yeah.
That would be my
Right.
take.
Because that's not as critical to
Mhm.
the overall
Right.
product of the week, right?
Right,
Right. Anybody else have any comments on that? Okay, and then, you know, I don't like to go into the negative side of this, but I have a client who does this and it wound up working very well. And so the person who comes in last into the meeting, they're the ones that are responsible for the notes the next meeting, or they're the ones that are responsible to head the meeting that you and I, you know, when we talked about last time, that they're responsible for presenting the meeting the next time. And it's made a total difference on who shows up to the meetings and on time. So even though it's really a negative type issue, I think it's also, you know, it gives a few people the chance to put themselves in other people's shoes and learn from that, learn from running the meetings. I think even if this isn't the reason, I know that Rhonda and I discussed a couple weeks ago is sharing that, which you've already started doing, right? And having different people, each person, especially when you want to bring people up in the, move them up in management and that type of thing. That's the best way to get them starting to engage and start taking on some of that responsibility is have them be in charge of running the
And
meetings.
it is one of the best ways you can get all those 4 core needs met all at the same time. People feel empowered, they feel lovable, they feel connected, and they feel contributing all in a meeting if they're running it.
Right. So that's
The
great.
other thing we do as an added layer is we have a safety sheet from OSHA, Safety Hazard Administration, whatever, and everybody reads a paragraph. So not only do
Okay.
we do that, but everybody reads at every meeting part of the safety sheet that we're talking about. So they can't just zone out, they have to pay attention.
Because they need to know where their part is, right? I like that.
One thing you could do to get the week off to a good start is get some helium balloons and then ask each person to, you can use it for positive things as well as negative things, but you can have them write on it an intention for the week.
Oh, I thought you meant like suck the helium before you read the sheet.
That's what I was thinking.
On alternate weeks, you could do that.
That would be entertaining.
Well, my thought was that you could, write an intention or let something go, or it's my intention for the week to be especially respectful and complimenting someone or seeing the good in someone, and then kind of have a little ceremony.
Letting them
to
go.
start the
Yeah,
week.
take it.
I
Particularly
like
after-
that idea,
Particularly
yeah.
after a hard former week, to kind of get the week off. So I would suggest doing unpredictable things on Mondays, just to keep your structured meetings, but have unpredictable events like balloons, or bring in some donuts, or tell a funny story, or just something to break up the monotony.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else on meetings that anybody wants to bring up or discuss or have questions about?
Well, I just wanted to say
Mhm.
one thing about the avoiding the Monday, Friday meetings. I
Mhm.
can see where sometimes it's actually good to have a Monday meeting because it does sort of regroup everybody. We're all on a team together. We're supporting, as opposed to coming in and getting so on your own track. So
Right.
I think that there's sometimes that actually could be a good
Well, and when she said that, I could definitely see where in her case where that, that kickstart
Yeah,
for them
kickstart.
is a good time. So I think when this is probably more when you're really going to have some really heavy duty stuff, the more critical stuff, you're going to have them better in the brain mode as on Tuesdays or Wednesdays versus Monday or Friday. Anything else? Okay, so let's talk about social media. Does that take away any of your time or your productivity, or you're productive at it?
I ignore it pretty
You
much
ignore
9
it,
months out of the
okay.
year, which is probably not a good thing, but that's how I
And
felt
why
it
do you
is.
ignore it?
Because I haven't, I guess I've always chosen other things to do. It hasn't in a concrete way felt that helpful or constructive to me and my business yet.
Okay. So you haven't felt like some of us have, that, oh my gosh, I got to be doing this, but it takes so much time. I know that's how I feel. So I don't. Okay. Anybody else? Social media? I know that you want to comment on social media?
Well, I ignore it.
I know.
Because I haven't determined the value for myself.
Right.
And I see it as a distraction and an annoyance.
Okay.
Although I know that there's benefit in using LinkedIn specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted my first comment on Facebook yesterday to a friend in California who was celebrating his 36th wedding anniversary, and I know you're celebrating your 32nd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So.
We have a birthday here too, don't we?
Yeah,
Steve,
pretty soon.
Do we have a birthday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay. Happy birthday. And all of that was brought for you this morning, Steve.
Judy.
And Judy's?
She's got a birthday
Let's
next.
celebrate Judy's
All
birthday.
right.
Get out the helium.
Get out the helium. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
I like the way you think.
Okay, Joy.
What bothers me about social media
We're just in business
is the
to
fact that
people laugh.
people put down such silly comments and waste time, and I mean, they're not really, well, I guess I'm more business oriented, or so, because it takes so much time. They asked how their vacation was, or go to this bar, or things like that, and I think, oh, good grief, I've got better things to do than this. And they all kind of relate to that, and I guess it's all forming relationships, but to me, that's hard to take. So I don't know what to do about it.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a suggestion, and that's to concentrate on the most important part of social media, which would, for me, be LinkedIn, because you can advance your business on LinkedIn more than you can on Facebook or Twitter.
Right, and that's basically what I've done. I mean, I do have a Facebook account and a Facebook page, but my concentration that I do give it is on LinkedIn. But I've even had potential clients contact me on Facebook to have me contact them. But then I don't get that, and if I haven't been on my Facebook so that was kind of, I had that to happen twice, and so I thought that was very interesting that, it makes you pay attention a little bit more, yeah.
But it all takes time.
It all takes time. It all
I think
takes
part
time.
of it is just not having a strategy around social media. That's what I'm struggling with, is coming up with one that I can live with, that I see the benefit and the return on investment.
Well, good. So that's what we're going to talk about.
One of the things you can do on Facebook that I don't think you can do on Twitter is similar to what we have on LinkedIn for the E4E. We have a business owners success community. But I created a family group on my Facebook page that's strictly for use for people in the family.
Mhm.
In other words, that's where we go to check and make sure everything is going in the family. But it could be a business group,
Mhm.
and it could be a closed or open group. Now,
Right.
for my family, I have a closed group. But you can set up a group on Facebook just like you can on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
So,
Okay, so that's something to think about. So why are we, those of us who are using social media, why are we using social media?
communication.
Okay. Anything else? So you're
Feel good
using
about
it.
ourselves, connect, know we're not alone, that kind of
Okay.
stuff.
So I think the whole thing is that we know we should be doing it because that's what everybody tells us. You got to be doing it. It's the in thing. It's the thing that needs to happen. And it is about building some relationships. And it is the new way of building relationship. So I don't think we can ignore it. But we also have to put some substance around it. And so it's really about, are we understanding why we're using it? And what you're going to use it for. And like Marilyn said, picking something and doing that and being, visual there. I think is really important. So, are you going to increase, is it for increasing sales or promoting products? Is it for just networking and relationships and building a community? Are you trying to offer some value to somebody? Like my Facebook page is all about just adding articles and tips and that kind of stuff. I really don't promote my businesses or that much stuff. I don't really try and sell on it. It's all, so are we using it for marketing? Are we using it for job searching? Really understanding what the purpose is. Are we using it personally? Are we using it for business? But understanding that, knowing that, I think makes a big difference, because we just do it and we haven't really taken the time to stop and think, why are we doing it and what is our purpose? So having some kind of an action plan is really going to help, especially with our time and also our results. So really understanding and asking yourself the question, what is my specific goal? Is my goal to get new fans? Is my goal to get new clients? To promote a product or service? What is that goal? And really understanding that goal. And you do have a worksheet that I gave you that you can look at. That you can fill out later, that will kind of give you a plan to kind of go through these type of things. So what are those drivers? What are those drivers that are going to help us and look at where we want to go? What's going to drive us? What are going to drive the people to find us, and what are the drivers for us? So looking at those, are we just looking at, are we just listening? Are we finding out? Are we looking for something ourselves? Are we just listening to a community of people and trying to find out their problems? That's one way of looking at it. Are we prospecting? Those are the things that you really want to understand and you want to really be specific for, because the more specific we are why we're doing it, the more intention we can have around it, and then the more time we can build our time and our productivity about what we do. Yes?
I just came to be aware of the fact that personally, I email my daughters and my sons and all that. On email, I even forward Don emails, but that's my media for family. Whereas other people have Facebook for family.
Right. So it's picking it and understanding why you're using it and what the value is for you. Like Stephen said, it's all about what value are you and what are you trying to create, and what tools are you going to use and how are you going to use them. So are you going to create on LinkedIn? Okay, I'm going to use LinkedIn. Do I create a group? I know Judy just recently created a group, something I've been toying with and saying I should, but haven't done it, because then it's one more place I have to start putting information, So, but, really is, what are those tools that really are going to help us? And from everything that I've learned, and I'm not a social media expert by any means, I'm taking it from, looking at from the time that we put into it, because I hear a lot that people spend a lot of time. So a lot of time looking at those tools, like using Hootsuite to automatically do some of the things. There are some things where you can post at the beginning of the week. And I got out of that habit, and I'm just now trying to get back into that habit. On Sunday evening, when I watch The Amazing Race, I sit there and I do, it's one of my favorite shows, so I'll sit and do, and schedule out some of my stuff for the week. And then that way it's done. It's all scheduled, it'll automatically happen. But you also have to be doing stuff intentionally, but some of that stuff just to keep you out there. And I have had so many people say, gosh, you're always out there, I always see you, and I think I'm not ever out there. So I think those little things, just having you put a quote out there or asking a question. I know Bill's been really good at doing that lately and getting a lot of response. So, what tools are we going to use and how are we going to use them? And then having some matrix. Understanding and having some matrix. So what are we trying to gain? What is that we're trying to gain around that? And I did not give you a copy of this because honestly, I don't think it's on, I could not find it on my, in the folder it should have been in. So I can recreate it. I need to recreate it so I can send it to you. But this would kind of give you a schedule of when am I going to do it, how long am I, how much, so that you can put some time around it. What am I going to do? What day am I going to do it? What kind of content am I going to do? Where am I going to post it? And then the whole idea is you got to look at the measurements. You have to measure what you're doing. So if you're after likes, how many new likes have you gotten over the month? How many comments have you gotten? How many retweets? Whatever that is that you've decided that you want to capture, but you want to just not be doing it just to be doing it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So having some intention behind it is really important.
Yeah. I might add that I know there's value in social media, and one of the things I've delegated to my virtual assistant in Colorado is doing that. And I recently learned that we have over 1,000 Twitter followers now. I don't know whether that's significant or not, but in promoting our new website, we're going to be now putting teasers out on that. So, that was great value, and I didn't have to do it. So I delegated that.
Right.
So I recognized it was important, but not important for me to do, but important for someone else to do.
And it's back to last week and the time and the value of your time and where you should put it.
Sure.
So, any other questions on social media that anybody has? Yes.
Something about whatever it is that you did when you were watching The Amazing Race. What is that called?
It's called Hootsuite.
It's actually really cool because
Yeah.
what you can do is you can create little Twitter.
You can either do Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them, I think, now.
So sweet and net vibes.
And net vibes.
Schedule what you want,
Facebook.
and it automatically
Well,
posts it.
That sounds awesome.
You
Yeah.
can post anything on Facebook
You can
from
even repeat it. You
Sweet
could
or net vibes.
You can say do it today at 2 o'clock and at 5 o'clock, and
Yeah, right.
tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and Friday at whatever time. So you can schedule it out there. Anything else? And there are a lot of other tools out there, but that's the one that I'm most familiar with. Okay, so let's kind of look at, and I'm just going to review, which the next part of our session is going to be about review over what we've talked about the last 5 weeks. But just kind of remind you so that our mind is is the best productivity tool that we have. So I've learned a lot about the mind, so I assume that, everybody else has, at least picked up 1 or 2 new things about how that mind acts.
It's not something that you think would be associated with business, but Stephen's part of this program has been a great help. It really has, because you have to know where your brain is or what's up there in order to be able to function
Right.
the rest of the week.
Right. So, and we've talked about some of our work habits, how we live, how we, being organized, are we on time, we're late, whatever that might look like. And then I talked about having a brain dump. Remember how important just dumping all that stuff out of your head and putting it on some paper so that you can organize it in some manner, some form. And then every week we've talked about what's working and what's not working, right? And then we do have control over our time, our money, our energy, and our behaviors. So those are the things that will help us. Yes?
I've been using one of your tricks too.
Yes?
You just take any segment of time, let's say you only have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, rather than say, oh, I can't get it all done in 10 minutes, so I'm not going to even start. What you do, even if you just make your piles, that take 5 minutes to do that, then you're that farther ahead the next time you're going to do something.
Right.
And that's what I've been trying to do too.
Good. Awesome. Okay. And I don't know if I've said this before, but I really believe that life management plus personal management equals life management. So it's really, and that's what I think we've been talking about for the last, all of us, is using our brain to our benefit, using our understanding ourselves, learning how to communicate with others, and moving forward in a more positive way that Judy's helped us talk. And then keeping things as simple as possible is really one of the best things we can do. The simpler that we keep it, the easier it is for us to implement and continue doing. And then, of course, everybody remembers staying organized, right? And so my question to you is, what will you do differently going forward? So, okay, we've got, so I have one quote that, and it's, minor changes produce major results. Will you change when change matters most? So what I would ask for you and challenge you to look over your notes for the last 5 weeks, and we still have the late session today that we're gonna discuss, what's happened over the last 5 weeks, where we started, where we are now. And I would just say, pick a couple of them and just concentrate them and move forward. And you can always come back to your notes. You'll have access to the videos to be able to take on something more. But don't try and do it all, because then you won't do anything, right? So, what can I do more of? What can I improve? And what can I stop doing? And what can I start doing? So, okay, well, we're gonna stop just and switch up a little bit, and then we're gonna do back to the panel discussion like we had the very first week when we did